Good morning. My name is Malwina Gębalska, and on behalf of the National Science Center in Poland, I coordinate the CHANSE program, Collaboration of Humanities in Social Sciences. And I'm very happy to welcome you at the webinar dedicated to a call on crisis, which is jointly launched by HERA network, Humanities in the European Research Area, and the CHANSE program. Today, we will present to you information about the call that was announced last month. We will have a presentation about the call topic, about call requirements, submission and evaluation process in our call, and then there will be time for question and answer. Thank you very much for your attendance and for being here with us. We have more than 300 participants registered today, so we can see that the call is very popular in the research community, and we're very happy that that the topic is up to date and the community is interested in the call. So now I will start with the presentation. Can we see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay. So the first presentation will be given by Wojciech Sowa. So he's a professor of the Jagiellonian University in Kraków, and he will tell you more about the topic of the call. So what proposals are invited to the call? Wojciech is also a chair of the HERA network board. So I'm handing over now to Wojciech. Wojciech, okay, he is here with us. The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, welcome to this workshop. Yes, we are very happy that so many of you are interested in the crisis call. I will try to guide you very briefly through the topic and the motivation for this call on behalf of HERA, and then what we maybe do is focus also on some other aspects of this call, just to give you a very brief overview what we expect from you as a potential applicants. So, as you know, the title of this call is Crisis Perspectives from the Humanities. And of course, we are expecting the transnational consortia, as always, to apply for this topic. And what we would like to see are the humanities-led proposals. So that's why the emphasis on this perspectives from the humanities on whatever crisis you may imagine. The motivation for this call was twofold. On one hand, of course, because of some recent crisis we lived in. On one hand, the COVID crisis. On the other hand, the war, which accompanies our life for over a year. We started to think about the crisis as one of the most important experiences of humankind. And as we know, because we live in a particular culture and we have been formed within this culture, we know that this notion of crisis has at least two meanings. So one is much more sinister, and we perceive crisis as something really difficult to manage, something very negative. But on the other hand, there is some brighter definition of the crisis as well, which is a turning point which brings some form of the change. And as we see the crisis through the history, they may be dealt with within these two definitions. One as the end of something very negative experience, and maybe not very positive, but some positive aspect to it towards the transformation. And that's why we organized this call according to three main pillars. As you probably have seen already, within these three pillars, we try to pose several questions. So we are interested in, first of all, different understandings of crisis and the notion of crisis. And we know that from culture to culture, from period to period in the history, this notion may differ. So we are interested in seeing the applications dealing with this particular problem. Then we are, because we are humanities scholars, we are of course interested in the crisis and the human response, both on the individual and the societal scale. And then as follow up to this human response, the representation of crisis, which should be particularly interesting for such disciplines as literature or arts. And we know that there are different representations, for example, in various forms of arts, and that's what we are interested in. What we would like to ask here within this context is also the question, for example, of empowerment and use of the crisis. So who has the right to call a situation a crisis, and so on. And we are interested not only in the recent crisis, but also we would like to invite applications which deal with crisis in various forms over the period of history. So the past and present, all possible perspectives, all definitions. We, as you probably noticed, we didn't particularly focus on our definition of crisis, leaving the floor to the imagination of the applicants and their point of view. So if you are applying to this call, you are welcome to define on your own what you mean by the particular crisis. So that's the intellectual side of the call. And what we are really interested in are the humanities responses and humanities perspectives. This, just not to mislead you, this is not about your background. So everybody is welcome here if she would like to answer these main questions as formulated by HERA. So we are not interested in your particular background, whether you are humanities scholar or you are maybe social sciences scholar, but we are interested in your project. So the project has to be humanities led, which means that the humanities perspectives should be the focus of the project. Of course, that does not that does not say that you may not use, for example, the methodology or perspectives also from the social sciences, but the research questions, main research questions, should be within the humanities disciplines. But that's only one part of this call. So the question of the notion and responses and representation of crises, but I would like also to refer to one particular aspect of this call, which is also knowledge exchange. And when you are reading the documentation, you see that there are some formal requirements which are connected with these spheres. And I think it will be useful if we briefly address this question as well. So what is the knowledge exchange according to our definition? So knowledge exchange is a two-way process which brings together academic staff, users of research, and wider groups and communities to exchange ideas, evidence, and expertise. It is a process of working collaboratively and is most effective when these relationships are established at the very start of the proposal. And as you probably reviewed the documentation of the call, which already has been published, you may have noticed that you are required to have at least one non-academic, so-called associated partner on board in your team, just to assure that all this knowledge exchange process is a real and important aspect of your endeavor. You know that we are living in this, so to say, reality where certain keywords are high on the agenda, so-called, for example, impact. And in order to assure the impact of your projects or various forms of impacts of your project, we would like you to think about the possible knowledge exchange strategy, or other, with other words, a form of cooperation between your highly intellectual academic team and the non-academic partners, and to assure that you, on one hand, you try to disseminate the results of your project, but also that you are ready to be the recipients of the signal you receive from the non-academic community, because we believe that that's where the true knowledge is born. So that's why this slide and this emphasis on the knowledge exchange. You will be required in the while preparing the proposal to refer to it, and it will become, as you will see, one of the criteria to assess your project. And if you are not quite certain what it is, what the definitions are, what knowledge exchange is, what impact is, what outreach and public engagement is, I encourage you to go to the HERA website and to use our toolkit published there, Public Engagement, Knowledge Exchange and Impact, a toolkit for HERA projects, which is very general and will help you probably to orientate and maneuver through this sphere. So on one hand, we expect you to deal with the academic side, academic research questions, and then to have a reflection also about potential use of your results also outside the pure academic sphere. That's, I think, everything I have to say right now. I will be happy to take on all your questions concerning either the topic per se or the knowledge exchange aspects at the end of the presentation. Thank you, and back to Malvina.
Thank you, Wojciech. And Wojciech is staying with us, as he said, through the question and answer sessions after we finished with all presentations. And he is happy to take the questions from you. Please have a look at the lower left corner of your screen, and there is a question mark there. So please include all your questions in this chat box. And we will collect all the questions at the end of the presentations and then respond to it during our session. Now I would like to move to the next part of our presentation and present to you general eligibility requirements in our call. So first of all, here you can see a list of countries participating in the call. So it means that researchers, research institutions from these countries can apply for funding in the call. It's important to make sure that your institution is eligible that they're eligible for the organization participating in the call. What is important, and then what Wojciech just described to you, is the relevance to the call. So your application must fall within the topic of the call. So this will be checked by experts and reviewers reading the proposals. Project duration must be between 24 and 36 months. So this is also a requirement. And an important thing, maximum amount for the entire transnational team is 1.5 million euros. So one project cannot exceed this amount across all partners involved. Please also make sure that national caps are, for some countries, there are national caps. So please read your eligibility requirements to see if there is a cap from your organization side. Also, all applications must be submitted through the electronic proposal submission system. So all information must be included in the online application, and the application must be submitted in English. Each consortium applying for a grant in the call must be composed of minimum of 4 and maximum 6 principal investigators from minimum 4 countries participating in the call. So this is an important criterion, and in the system, so the system where you apply for the grant will also remind you about this requirement. But please keep this in mind. So minimum 4 national teams, maximum 6 national teams per proposal. And here you can see a picture showing you how the consortium is built. So in each project submitted in the call, there should be 4 national teams led by a national principal investigator. One principal investigator takes the role of the leader and is responsible for the application on behalf of the transnational consortium. We also encourage you to involve cooperation partner and associate partners. Wojciech mentioned associate partners who are non-academic stakeholders that can be involved in your project. It is important to note that in the crisis call, there should be at least 1 associate partners per proposal. Associate partners can be from any countries, so not only those participating in the call. So it's your choice to choose the right associate partner. But of course, the role must be described in the proposal. We also invite so-called cooperation partners. So these are institutions or organizations from countries not participating in the call, or from institutions that are not eligible for funders in the countries that we just presented to you. Please remember that with this call, we want to support also the Ukrainian research community, and it's possible to fund costs related to involvement of Ukrainian researchers in your projects. Please check national requirements from Poland and the United Kingdom. There you can find some information about how you can involve and what costs you can plan for researchers from Ukraine. And also from this call, we exclude any collaboration with entities from Russia and Belarus. This is here we follow the requirements from the European Commission. So these entities from these countries cannot be involved in the proposals in any. So these entities cannot be involved in any way. To facilitate consortia building, to help you build your consortia and to find new partners for your proposals, we prepared a partner search tool where you can find partners for your projects, or also you can register as partners who are looking for projects. We already have, I think, more than 30 or 40 projects looking for partners and partners looking for projects. So please have a look on this website. Maybe you can already find some partners for your projects, and you can also register if you are looking for collaborations and if you want to form an application in the call. So please feel free to use this tool for the call. Coming back to the roles of researchers in research consortia applying for the call, I would like to briefly describe the role of the project leader, who is responsible for the intellectual agenda of the transnational project that you submit. He will also submit the proposals on behalf of the entire international consortium. So only the leader submits the proposal through the EPSS system. He's also the main contact for the call secretariat, who will communicate the results of all evaluation stages to the project leader. And then when project is funded, the project leader is responsible for general reporting on behalf of the consortium to the secretariat. As I mentioned, in all proposals, there are at least 4, maximum 6 principal investigators, so national coordinators of national teams, and they lead research activities at their national institutions. Please remember there cannot be more than 1 principal investigator per university. So if there's more than 1 researcher per university in the application, only 1 person can be a PI. So there can be only 1 team from 1 university in the application. We invite you also to encourage involvement of researchers at different stages of their career. So in the PI team, you can have researchers, PhD researcher, pre-doctoral researchers, but also other also senior researchers or statisticians or any researchers or any positions that you need for your project. And it's important to note that CVs of principal investigators, so of all principal investigators, will be assessed by experts. So we ask you to attach CVs for each national PI. Again, and I cannot emphasize it more, please make sure that you meet all national eligibility requirements, because during the eligibility check, all national funders will also check your application in terms of formal requirements, national formal requirements. So it's important to make sure that your institution is eligible for funding in the call, because if 1 principal investigator is not eligible, then the entire consortium is not eligible. So it's important to make sure that all rules or criteria are met. Also, I would like to emphasize that in the crisis call, you can only participate as PI or project leader in 1 application. So the system also should warn you if you try to submit more than 1 application. And also the same application cannot be submitted under the well-being call, which was announced last month together with the crisis call. So these are 2 separate calls. However, we organize 2 parallel processes, evaluation processes for these calls. So 1 principal investigator cannot submit more than 1 application in the crisis call, but they cannot also apply at the same time as principal investigators or project leader under the well-being call. And the same application cannot be submitted under both calls. So please keep that in mind. And also the system will, the EPSS system will remind you about that. We mentioned already associate partners. So it's important to remember that each consortium must include at least 1 associate partner. And we ask for a commitment letter from associate partners in the EPSS system. Associate partners are non-academic stakeholders who will be involved in supporting knowledge exchange activities. We also mentioned cooperation partners. So these are researchers from institutions not eligible in the call, from non-call countries. So please also feel free to invite them to your project. Associate partners and cooperation partners, they should have their own funding, or they should provide an in-kind support to your project. Although some countries, some funding agencies, they allow for costs for associate partners and cooperation partners. So please again check with your national funders if any costs like travel or subcontracting are eligible for associate or cooperation partners. I hope you already had a chance to see the documentation for the call. So the most important part is the call announcement, where you can find all requirements. We also provide outline proposal form and financial plan Excel sheet. You can edit these documents in preparation of your application, but all information must be directly submitted in the EPSS system. Again, I would like to remind you about national or regional eligibility requirements. Make sure that all your partners or principal investigators in your project meet these requirements. We also provide you with frequently asked questions and glossary. This will help you with finding information about call requirements. All information is published on the CHANSE website and also on the HERA website. We will also update frequently asked questions based on your inquiries that we receive via email. In the call announcement, you will find key information about basic requirements. You will find the description of the call topic that Wojciech explained to you. You will find information about the team structure, about eligible budget, and the procedure of project submission, evaluation, and selection. In the call announcement, we also provide you with brief information about responsibilities for funded projects. Outline proposal form, which must be attached in the system. So in the application form, we ask you for basic information about your project, for a project summary that will be used to find experts and reviewers. For the evaluation process, we ask for basic information about your team and associate partners and cooperation partners. We ask you to describe ethical issues if they're involved in your proposals. We ask for a budget plan with short explanation. And the attachment that must be enclosed in the system is the project description, 5 pages, and CVs of all principal investigators, including the project leader. There are some national requirements, but please have a look at your national eligibility requirements if anything else is needed from a national team. Yes, so coming back to national requirements, in this document, you can find some information about what budget categories can be included in your project, what are the requirements towards the PI, if he or she needs a PhD degree or not. So please make sure that you meet all these requirements. Cost categories, they depend on national requirements. However, standard ones are employment, so salaries for your team members, equipment, travel and meeting costs, consumables, funding for dissemination, participation in conferences or publications. Some funding organizations also allow for overheads, so indirect costs. And again, please remember that maximum budget per one transnational project across all partners is 1.5 million euros. Help desk for applicants is organized in the National Science Center, so we are happy to answer all your questions. We have a mailbox dedicated to the call crisis at ncn.gov.pl. So please feel free, in case of any doubts, to contact us. In case of doubts regarding your national projects or national requirements, please contact your national funders, and the list of contacts to national funders is included in the call documentation and also on the website where we publish the call. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Carmen Kivistik from Estonian Research Council, ETAC, and she will give you some information about how to submit your proposal in the EPSS system. Carmen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will give you a short overview about the submission system. It is very, very user-friendly. All the submission process and the evaluation process will take place in the one system, and it guides you through the submission process with all the remarks, with all the helpful comments. So for the first step, you need to sign in. You have to create an EPSS system account. For the first page, in the first page, you will click to sign in and create a new account. Once you have signed in, you can choose whether you would like to be a project leader and create a new proposal, or be a principal investigator and join the proposal. If you need to join the proposal, you need to get a code from the project leader. And with this code, you can join the proposal that already exists or has been already created by the project leader. Here is the project leader view. The project leader is the one who can control all the submission. So, and here you can already see that all the head titles have a little explanation behind them. So it will be like this throughout the system. So every little detail that you need to fill in, you have these little remarks that help you do that. And the project leader, like already Malvina explained, have to insert all the details of themselves, the CV, the CVs, the outline proposal itself, and everything, all the documentation. The partner's view is a bit shorter. So the partner, the principal investigator, has to fill in their own details. And when everything is done, so the project leader creates the account and provides the code for the PIs, so they can join the already created submission form. The project leader can edit all the sections, and the project leader is the one who submits the proposal behalf all the other PIs. And you can, the project leader can correct all the details during the submission time. They can submit several times the proposal until the deadline. And the very last proposal submission, this copy will be used for the evaluation. And I think it's quite simple. Well, the main message is that the system is very user-friendly. It has several kinds of helping remarks and comments there. So I think it's a very, very nice system to use. And everything is within this system, so you don't have to do any Excel files or nothing like this. And all the files will be submitted through this system, so you don't have to do anything else, only through this system. And now I'm giving the floor to my colleague Jessica, who will walk you through the evaluation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. So I'm going to present how the proposal evaluation and selection process of the call works. And the applications will be evaluated in a two-stage procedure by an international and independent review panel composed of leading humanities scholars. And this review panel is appointed by the Crisis Call Board, which includes all the funding organizations participating in the call. In the outline proposal phase, there will be first a national and international eligibility check. And all the proposals that meet the requirements will be evaluated by the review panel. And based on their assessment, the Crisis Call Board will choose the consortia that will be invited to submit a full proposal in the beginning of 2024. And the deadline for full proposals will be the 26th of March. And then in the full proposal phase, the proposals that meet the national and international eligibility requirements will be evaluated first, but at least two independent external experts selected from a pool of humanities scholars that is proposed by the funding organizations. And the evaluation reports of these external experts will be shared with the applicants. This will be anonymous, the reports. And the applicants will be able to send their rebuttal in case they want to respond. But the rebuttal of the applicants is not mandatory. And after this process, the review panel will make a ranked list of proposals recommended for funding based on the full applications, the external expert reports, and also the applicant's responses to this. And finally, the review panel will give the ranked list to the crisis call board, who will then select the projects that will be funded. So what will be the evaluation criteria? And in the outline proposal phase, the review panel will select proposals based on 4 criteria. Each criterion will be scored on a scale from 0 to 5, being 3 the threshold for all of them. However, the weight of each criterion is different. The first criterion is the relevance of the proposals to the theme crisis and evidence of a humanities-led approach, which is the 30% of the total score. And this is how the proposal fits to the objectives, the key pillars, and the priorities of the call. The second criterion is the potential for research excellence, which is the 40% of the total score. And the panel will assess if the concept is sound and the quality of the objectives, but also the advance that the proposed project will bring about, and the quality and effectiveness of the research methodology, the data collection, and the associated work plan. The third criterion is the potential impact of the proposed research, which is the 15% of the total scores. And this includes the scientific impact, the extent to which the research proposed is likely to be of value to stakeholder communities, and the appropriateness of measures for the dissemination or exploitation of transnational projects results and management of intellectual property. The fourth and last criterion is the quality of the implementation and management, which is also the 15% of the total score. And this criterion will be based on the appropriateness of the management structure and procedures, the quality and relevant experience of the individual participants, the quality of the consortium as a whole, including complementarity, but also balance in terms of gender, academic age, and geographical diversity, and the appropriate allocation and justification of the resources to be committed. And it's important to note that the review panel will also look into ethic issues included in the submitted proposals, and they will provide relevant recommendations and guidelines. I want to stress that these are the criteria for the selection of proposals in the outline proposal phase. Full proposals will be evaluated according to research excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation, but the detailed requirements will be available once full proposals are invited. And now, let me explain one more thing about the final selection of the proposals to be funded. As I have already mentioned, the review panel will recommend a list of projects for funding to the national funding organizations that form the crisis call board. And it is the crisis call board which will make the final decision. The aim of all the funding organizations participating in the call is to maximize the overall funding and fund as many excellent research projects as possible. So, in the case that not all ex-aequo proposals can be selected, they will be prioritized according to the following criteria. First, and if possible, each funding organization funds at least one project. And second, the projects involving partners from widening countries and/or projects demonstrating gender balance in the composition of principal investigators should be prioritized. So I hope the explanation of the process of proposal evaluation and selection was clear, but we can answer any of your questions now in the following Q&A session. So I will pass you over to Malvina, who will moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Carmen, for your presentations. So this is all from us when it comes to presenting the information. I have noticed that there are some questions in the chat if the slides will be shared and if the recording will be available after the webinar. So the answer is yes. We will publish the slides on the website, and also the recording will be available. So you will be able to come back to our presentations and also to the presentation that we that we showed you today. Now we're starting the Q&A session. So please, just to remind you, there is a box with a question mark in the left lower corner of your screen. And now we will answer your questions. So the session is recorded and will be available. The next question: does the non-academic partner count as one of the 4 to 6 project leaders, or is it an extra partnership? So this is an extra partnership. This limit of from 4 to 6 partners, these should be academic partners who will be involved in the transnational consortium. So cooperation partners and associate partners are extra partners. So we do not count them in this limit. And would it be possible to get our project idea pre-checked to ensure that's in the scope of the call? So no, this is not, we do not do it. So this criterion of relevance to the call will be assessed by the expert panel, so the panel members who will assess applications at the first stage of the call. What are your favorite components of the budget? What do you expect in terms of how one will spend the money prioritization? Wojciech, you wanted to answer that?
Yeah. I want to address this question and all other questions concerning the budget. So first of all, please remember, check your national eligibility requirements. So basically, everything which is allowed in your individual countries when you are applying for, so to say, national grants or projects is allowed also here. So, and remember that that might be quite huge differences between the various agencies. So what is allowed, for example, in the UK may not be allowed somewhere else, and vice versa. So if you are trying to think about the budget as the whole, so the budget of the consortium, please talk to your partners, and that's the way, I mean, to enable the good structured budget. I mean, just to ensure that, for example, if you may not pay for something from the Polish budget, maybe your colleague from other country may be able to pay for it. So depending on your country, I mean, everything which was presented here, I mean, salaries, postdocs, I don't know, scholarships, research trips, field research, everything which you may think of, probably can be eligible. So it's not about our favorite components of the budget, but what is allowed and what is not allowed in your country. And if you are asking about the pre-check, of course, we cannot do the pre-check of the idea, but probably in some of the countries participating in the call, you may ask the respective agency to do at least a formal check. You may consult, for example, budgetary questions and all formal questions with them, even if probably you may not be able to consult the real idea, because the idea of your project is checked then by or evaluated by the research panel. But if there are such agencies in Europe that may help you with developing the idea, consult them. But it may not be quite popular, so to say, I mean, judging from my experience.
Just adding up to what Wojciech mentioned regarding the budget, it's important to plan your budget well, because expert will also make sure that the resources are well planned. So for example, if you're planning, if the resources for your research team are appropriate, if there is enough persons involved in the projects to deliver the goals that you planned in your project. So it's important to also plan the implementation, because this is also a criterion. So make sure that what you plan in your proposal is also mirrored in the budget of your project, so that there are no doubts among the experts that you planned your project well. I think I answered this additional question, because the question was not about what is allowed or not, but about assessment criteria. So experts will do check resources that you plan to implement your projects, if this is feasible with the resources that you planned or not, if additional resources should be added or not. So please remember that the implementation plan, which also involves planning your resources, planning the structure of your team, number of researchers or number of persons involved, will be assessed by the experts.
But on the other hand, remember that it will be checked also formally, but by your research agency as well.
Yeah.
So if you plan something which is not eligible, I mean, they may create some problems, I'm sure about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is an important point, to make sure that all costs that you include in your proposal are eligible in your national from your national organization. Next question: members from the non-academic knowledge exchange group, can they still have an academic background? Yes, they do, but they must represent a non-academic community or non-academic stakeholder. So it's okay, but they should bring a perspective of a non-academic stakeholder into your project. Okay. Questions about national caps. Does this mean that the PI from each country should check that the budget at their end does not exceed national cap if there is one? Yes, exactly. Please check. The EPSS system, for some definite caps, it will remind you about them, but I would make sure in the national eligibility requirements if there's a national cap, because some countries do have these caps. And we also provide a table in the call documentation. There is a table with national caps. So please have a look at this table and make sure that your national part does not exceed this cap. Do all PIs have to be from the above mentioned participating countries? Yes. So principal investigators involved in one project, so minimum 4 and maximum 6, must all come from countries participating in the call. And one more information, that they must be eligible for funding organizations that represent these countries. Because it may happen that, for example, your institution is not eligible for the funder from the country involved in the call. So again, national requirements are very important. Please make sure that your institution is eligible. So all those 4 to 6 principal investigators must be eligible for the funders. In the application form, what do you mean by significance of the research question? So I will hand over to Wojciech for this one.
I mean, of course, we are expecting that you are addressing something which is quite important in context of the intellectual side of the call. So if you are talking about crisis, I mean, you have to probably select a form of a crisis you are dealing with. And we hope it is the research question you formulate could have potentially big impact on the discipline and the research around it. So that's the significance of the research question, that you are not posing a trivial questions, but we would like to encourage you to think broadly about the crisis.
Thank you. And how important is to travel and have events such as workshops? Wojciech, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of questions concerning with this. Of course, you are allowed to propose your dissemination strategy on your own. I mean, it must be meaningful, of course, but remember that depending on what you are doing, what material you are dealing with, I mean, some of you may not need to travel as much as the other ones who would like to go and do research on site somewhere. But we know that that we can do several things over the internet, and we learned how to do this. But remember that also the structure, how your consortium will be managed, will be assessed by the experts as well. So if you, so what we are focusing here are the transnational consortia, which are comprised several partners, but you have to provide a sort of strategy how you communicate with the partners. And it is not that we have one project which is, so to say, some of the 4 or 6 sub-projects. You have to convince the experts that you are doing one big thing, which comprises from 4 subparts, but all these subparts have to combine with one with another. So that's why, I mean, I think the workshops and traveling are good means to ensure that the proper communication can be in place. But if you have, for example, if you have some other strategy, why not doing it according to your idea, and then move the budget for traveling to have to do something else. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to assess as a priori what importance of traveling is. Personally, I would stick to some form of personal meetings anyway. I mean, if it's only possible, but that's my experience.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And let's move to the next questions. All teams are expected or required to include junior researchers, correct? Is there a preference for named junior candidates or open competitive posts? So we do encourage diversity in the composition of the research team. So this is something that we do encourage in the call text. Again, please check your national requirements, how the composition of your research team can be planned according to national requirements. And also when it comes to open competition or named candidates, it's up to your national funder or regional funder. So I can speak about Polish organizations, for example. We expect that some posts will be, so some positions will be hired based on an open competition. So it may happen also that your organization have the same rules. So please check with your national regional funders in terms of that. Is there a list of evaluation criteria available to applicants? Yes, this list was presented in the presentation today, and also you will find it in the call announcement. And review panel members will also read this criteria, will familiarize themselves with the criteria, and based on this criteria, they will evaluate your proposals. So this is a transparent and information that is published on the website. Can budget contain teaching buyouts? So here again, I would like to please refer to your national requirements. So some agencies do allow it, some not. So please check with your national contact point. Here we have a longer question. Does a humanities focus mean that the person leading the application must have a degree in one of the disciplines on the list? And if so, would that be any degree and that fulfills that criterion, or the highest one one has attained? And then, can one participate in the call even if one does not have a degree in humanities at all? Is one eligible without a degree in humanities but with a prior publication in the field? And finally, can the proposal include data collected previously if the data is fit in the proposal? Related to this question, can the empirical cases be outside the countries that are party to the funder? So I will hand over to Wojciech for these questions.
Yes, I mean, once again, because that's, I think, the topic of some other questions as well. You don't have to have a degree in humanities to be able to participate in this call. What we are interested in are the humanities-led proposals. What does this mean? This means that you pose the research question which is relevant to the humanities, and that you are using also methodology which is common in humanities, apart from the other methods, because we know that, I mean, it's difficult to be to use only one methodology today. I mean, if you are doing it only within one methodology, it might be justified in some, maybe by some topics, but if you are doing probably such a big scale project, which probably will be interdisciplinary anyway, I mean, concerning the humanities, probably you cannot do it with using one single methodology. So if you are using various methods from social sciences and from humanities, okay. But if you are using only methodology from social sciences, it may be assessed by the experts as non-humanities led. So that's the problem. And just to follow up on this context, no, there is no one definition of humanities. And the problem is, because you were asking about it in this, with relation to this call, we are not talking about the, so to say, didactic organization of the departments at the university and grades. So degree in humanities or degree in social sciences, because we know that some fields in one countries are part of the social sciences and in the other are qualified as the core humanities. Linguistics is such a case. Yeah, so it's all about the formulating the right research question. I can just refer to the, maybe not a definition, but how HERA thinks about humanities. The word humanities has somewhat different connotations across Europe, reflecting different national cultures, traditions, and educational structures. Broadly defined, humanities includes those disciplines that focus on the dynamics and legacies of human culture and history. Traditionally, this includes, but is not limited to, literary studies, languages, linguistics, history, philosophy, archaeology, comparative religion, art history, heritage studies, musicology, ethnology, film studies, media studies, and digital humanities. It sometimes also includes disciplines like sociology, economics, geography, anthropology, psychology, and law that overlap with the social sciences, particularly in cases where such disciplines employ humanities methodologies. So methodologically, the humanities are defined by the continual reinterpretation of historical evidence and data, and as well as their investigation of contemporary cultural phenomena and production of new data. They pay particular attention to the effects of ideas, language, culture on human understanding and behavior. They scrutinize the epistemological and ideological assumptions that underpin the dynamics and conditions of knowledge itself. They analyze the nature and forms of creativity and cultural practice. Some forms of humanities research also use methodologies stemming from the creative arts. So that's all we have, so to say, as far as the definitions are meant, and you can read them on the HERA website. So if you do not have a degree in humanities, but still your research is in humanities or can be demonstrated that it fits the humanities, yes, you are welcome. Can the proposal include data collected previously if they fit in the proposal? Yes, generally yes, if the national requirements allow it. I mean, if you created data from some, I don't know, research project paid by, I don't know, national agency or ministry of one country or another, or the other funders, please check whether you can reuse this data for the other purposes. If it is allowed, we do not have any objections against it. And
Okay.
sorry, I mean, there was also the other, I think, second part of the question. Can the empirical cases be outside the countries that were party to the funder? Yes. So you can research all crises, not only in Europe, not only connected with these countries which are part of this particular call, but also every cases you are interested in globally.
Mm-hmm. And let's move to the next one. I have two questions. Knowledge exchange. How can we include non-academic partners in the project? Can they receive funding from the project, and what type of costs can be covered with it? And then composition of the consortium. How important is it that the lead researcher has prior experience with project management, or is it more important that the consortium as a whole has appropriate experience? So when it comes to the first question, I understand this is a question regarding cost categories. So it depends on your national funders. So if they allow for a cost for non-academic stakeholders or associate partners, usually, or maybe not usually, but some partners do fund travel costs or participation of your non-academic stakeholders in meetings. But this again must be checked on your national with your national eligibility requirements. When it comes to the composition, in the call text, we say that it's important that the project leader has a solid experience in leading transnational and collaborative research projects. So please make sure that the project leader has this experience, because it will be assessed by the evaluator. So please also, it's important to mention this experience in the CV of the project leader. So the project leader must be really carefully chosen to be able to lead and to manage a transnational consortium. I don't know, Wojciech, if you want to add anything to this part.
Yes, I mean, imagine that it might be quite competitive to get funded in this call. That's why probably if you read the criterion, I mean, the way how you manage the consortium, I mean, it would be good for the project leader to have a prior experience with bigger scale projects, because it will convince probably the reviewers that it can be assured that there will be good communication across the entire consortium and so on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's have a look at the next question. What defines a Ukrainian researcher? This can be someone affiliated with the Ukrainian research institution, Ukrainian researcher who's for the moment exiled in another country, a researcher with a Ukrainian national background. Here we mainly mention and talk about, I think, the first two. So those researchers who are affiliated in research institutions in Ukraine, and also those who are exiled. But of course, we welcome, and in the call, we welcome all researchers, irrespective of their nationality. So if the principal investigator is of Ukrainian, has the Ukrainian heritage, but is affiliated with any EU member state or any country participating in the call, they of course can participate in the team in any role. But with this call, we want to show solidarity with the research community from Ukraine. So mainly the first two. So this we want to support this community. But of course, in the call, we can fund researchers that are of Ukrainian heritage but affiliated with other institutions. Can I have the next question? Can projects have a substantive contribution to crisis versus critical one, exploring methods for thinking about and for addressing crisis across humanities, social sciences, arts? So this one is addressed to Wojciech.
I'm not quite getting this. Can project have a substantive? Yeah, I think yes. I mean, we do not limit. You have to remember that when you are preparing the call and writing the call, you can only draft some ideas, and we wanted to also to limit ourselves and then leave the floor to your imagination and your research interests. So if you can demonstrate that it fits the crisis, which is not only about the events in history, but also about some other forms, for example, of I don't know, critical thinking, imagination, and so on. I mean, then you can. I think it could be a relevant question in this context, but I mean, I'm not someone to assess it. So you have to convince the review panel that your research idea fits the needs of the call.
Thank you. And the next one, the outline proposal form has a series of questions. Are these meant to be explicitly addressed in the application one by one, or should they be seen as more general guidelines reminders? So this is a question about the structure of the outline proposal form. Wojciech, would you like to take this one?
Of course, there are only guidelines. I mean, in order to help you to structure your text, the proposal form in a good shape, so that you more or less address all the relevant things which will be then assessed. Remember that you, in the outline phase, have a very, very limited space. So be concise and be structured to tackle everything which is demanded from you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are guidelines or reminders, yes.
Mm-hmm. So make sure that all information that is included in these questions is in the application, but how you structure it, it's up to you, so that the whole text is comprehensible for the experts and convinces them. Can the associate partner be from Japan or Greece? Yes, that's
yes.
okay. We are card-carrying social scientists, but work on history. As regards humanities, how do you weigh the content of the application versus institutional self-identification and affiliation? For instance, would a project consisting of only social science institution themes, but where all consistently study and use history, be at a disadvantage? Wojciech, I hand over to you.
I mean, from the formal point of view, no. But if you have only social scientists on board, can you really provide a humanities-led perspective? That's the question. So if you think yes, then you are welcome. And there is no disadvantage as far as your background is concerned. But if you, I mean, it's quite difficult. I mean, it's very difficult other way around as well. If you have only humanities scholars and then address a proper social sciences led research question. So if you have to make the decision. I mean, if you think yes, you are able to do this, to demonstrate that the project is humanities led, no disadvantages whatsoever.
And the next question, if we have two PIs from different universities, but from the same country, do they count as one or two PIs? So it's important to keep in mind that in one project, there should be partners from at least 4 countries. So for example, if you plan to have 4 PIs, they must be from 4 countries participating in the call. You can have an extra principal investigator, for example. You can have 5 PIs from 4 countries. This is fine. But again, please check your national requirements, because it may happen that your funding organization requires that if there are 2 universities from the same country, they have to form a consortium and have one leader, one country leader. But it depends on your national rules. So this must be checked. And again, please remember that there must be at least representatives of 4 countries in the call. Let's have a look at the next question regarding PIs. Can this be at one university and most of her research team be based at another university, all of them within the same country? Yes, it's okay, but referring to what I just said, it's important to make sure that two universities from the same country, how they should build, if they should build like one consortium, one national consortium, or have two separate PIs in the project. There can be many applications from the same university. So there's no limit for applications per university, only per PI. So one person can be a PI in only one proposal. In a university with different research units, only one research unit could apply. So there's one PI per university. So you can in one PI team, you can have researchers from different units from your university, but there can be just one PI per university. Can a proposal include colleagues from outside Europe, given the project PIs are from one of the countries included in the call? Yes, so we can. There is this cooperation partner category, so you can involve your colleagues from countries not participating in the call. However, please remember that they may need to have their own funding for the project, or if a national regional funder allows for costs for cooperation partners, they can benefit from the project. Is it possible to advertise an open postdoc position within the project? It depends on your national requirements. If it's required, if it's possible. So again, it depends on your national regional requirements. There can be many applications from the same university. And what happens if multiple applications from the same university receive a good evaluation? How is the final ranking made? So experts in the review panel will assess a project as a whole. So if we have projects with 4 national partners, either the entire application receives funding or no one receives funding. So it doesn't matter if the same university is in all applications funded in the call. Which nationality counts, that of the institution or that of the individual? So in the call, we invite researchers of any nationality. It's important that the institution of the principal investigator is based in the country participating in the call, and that this institution is eligible for funding in that country, for the funder from the country. Will the CVs from PIs from possible cooperation partners be part of the assessments or not? So we do not ask for CVs of cooperation partners. We ask for commitment letters, but in the description of your application, you may mention experience of your cooperation partner, which will be relevant for the application for the proposal. Can you be a project leader in one project and principal investigator in another projects within crisis team? So the answer is no. You can be a PI or a PL, so principal investigator or a project leader in one application only in the crisis call. Is there any expectation of co-financing from partners, including associate partners? So yes, in general, we expect that associate partners and cooperation partners will also provide their in-kind or their own funding. However, as I mentioned, some countries, some funders allow for costs for cooperation or associate partners. What does gender balance mean? So we have the definition in the call documentation, just to mention it. So gender diversity. So by that, we understand underrepresented gender and addressing the following dimensions. So gender balance among principal investigators and gender balance in the research team. So this is something that we encourage in the call, to have balance among principal investigators and among the team members. What kind of funding do cooperation partners need? Can it be pre-existing funding or must it be new funding acquired specifically for the purpose of being a cooperation partner? How is cooperation partners funding evaluated? We ask you just to provide us information of the commitment of the cooperation partner. So how can he contribute? How the institution of a cooperation partner can commit to the project. So whatever information you have, whatever commitment the cooperation partner have, is it person months, is it in-kind contribution, is it organization of meetings, is it support in organization of meetings with stakeholders or with the community that you're collaborating with. So whatever they can bring to the projects, please describe it in the application and in the commitment letter. It can be different types of contribution. But again, it must be justified by the topic of your research of the project. I don't fully get the humanities social sciences distinction as applied in that call. Could you please elaborate on that a bit more? So we have addressed it already in several responses to your questions, but Wojciech, if you would like to add anything.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, depending, I mean, how you define, and once again, there is no strict definition of humanities and there is no strict definition of social sciences. But basically, what I understand, being only a humble humanities scholar, so I have no idea about social sciences, but if you want to tackle, if you formulate a research question and then, for example, try to solve this research problem only, for example, using quantitative methods, do not allowing for any qualitative or speculative, I don't know, interpretative methodology, I don't really think that it would count as a good humanities-led proposal. But that's only my my feeling. So I would say, try to talk to your to members of your team or potential team. Try to address it from various perspectives. Try to mix the methodologies. So not only so if you are using the, I don't know, creative arts or arts methodology, yes, probably that would be better situation. But if you want to see, I mean, how HERA defined humanities, that's the definition I just quoted a couple of minutes ago. I mean, I'm putting the link to the chat, and then maybe it will help you, I mean, to see, I mean, what we think humanities can be or can cover, but it is not a limited space. So that's, if you are, for example, if you are addressing research question about within this call about mental health because of the COVID crisis, and then try to do it only using I don't know, psychological perspective, probably the experts will say it does not really feel like a humanities-led proposal. But if you are addressing the problem of anxiety from various points, for example, religion, philosophy, and try to combine it with the previous experiences, I don't know, for example, from medieval times, and then have a bridge into modern psychology, yes, it may be the part of the call of this call as well. So it's difficult, and it cannot be just, you know, done by a proper definition, because there is none. That's the problem.
Thank you, Wojciech. Let's have a look at the next question. Can you be a project leader in one project? So it's a follow-up question. And the team member, can you be a team member in one project being PI in another? So this is allowed. So there's no limit, no restriction on that. So the limit refers to being a PI or a PL. Let's move to the next question. Is there a priority of countries, or all countries equal? In some other calls, such as cost action, there are priority countries. And what is the role of Ukrainian partners in the call? Is that priority, or can one ignore that? So we do not have any priority countries, although we do encourage you to involve widening countries. So these are EU13, so-called new member states, participating in the call. So you can find the list of these countries in the call announcement. So we encourage you to involve them. And in case of exequatur proposals, we will consider funding proposals involving gender balance and inclusion of widening countries. However, in the call criteria assessed by the panel member, we do not include this priority. When it comes to the role of Ukrainian partners, this is again an encouragement. This will not be assessed by the experts in the call. This is something that we take from the European Commission to encourage you also to support this community. So if you, in a way, you can ignore it. This is something that we, as a network of funders, encourage you to take into consideration. How important is it to train your scholars to have that in the application? How does that affect proposal evaluation? Wojciech, would you like to take this one?
Yes. So there is no official requirement that you have to train young scholars. But once again, I mean, there is this criterion about the balance of the consortium. So if you have only the consortium consisting of advanced scholars, probably nobody will say that it is balanced. We all agree that if we are thinking about the future of humanities, the importance of the training of the ECR's early career researchers or PhD students is really, really crucial. So that's so I would suggest to take on this as a possibility, try to explore it. Of course, depending on the country, I mean, it is not a necessity that you have. I mean, each of the team members have a PhD student, but if you have a balanced concern, you have some more advanced colleagues, you have you have postdocs, you have students or PhD students, this will count probably as more balanced than having only one category. So there is no requisition to do this, but so it is important within the framework of this necessity to address the balance consortium.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are the funds transferable if a PI changes university in another country included in the call in the course of the project? So this depends on your national requirements. If you have the scheme of money follows researcher, or how your funder approaches this issue. So you must check with your national funder if it's possible to change your affiliation during the duration of the project. So please check with your national funder. How many projects will be funded under this call? So the budget for the call is 15.5 million euros for all international consortia. Please remember that your national team in each proposal will be funded by your national funder. So for example, if in one team we have Poland, France, Bulgaria, and Croatia, each of these parts will be funded by their national funder. One proposal may not exceed 1.5 million euros. So I think we will fund around 10 proposals, 10 international consortia. But again, it depends on the budgets of these proposals, and sometimes it happens that funders, if they see that there's a good level of applications and many proposals were recommended for funding, they increase their national allocation. So we hope that it will be possible in the call. So please, also you can always speak with your funders. Please have a look at the allocations. But of course, the funding is limited. But we hope that if we have a good list of applications recommended for funding, we can maybe increase this budget a bit. But it's, of course, the funding is limited and depends on national funders. Is there a funding cap per country? Yes, so some funding organizations do have national caps. Please check the call announcement. There is a table with these caps, and also check your national requirements for this information. Can a proposal include both a project leader and PI from one and the same university faculty? So as I mentioned, in one national, so there can be just one national team from the same university per proposal. So one university team per proposal. Is there a pre-proposal check possible concerning the general research question and consortium via phone, mail, or Zoom? So for general requirements, please contact us, the crisis mailbox at National Science Center in Poland. So we provide this information on the website. For information and pre-checks, maybe of your budgets, national budgets, please contact your national funders. And also in the EPSS system, we have guidelines and reminders. So so the system will also be helpful in terms of formal requirements. So it warns you about if you exceed the budget for the entire consortium. So the system also helps. Is there a general definition threshold of who can act as a PI, or does this differ from country to country? So it does differ from country to country, but please make sure that you choose a right person for the PI. This again has to be a person with experience in projects and also in the topic that you're exploring in your application. Can I have the next question? Does the PL have to be one of the PIs? So yes, if in one project we have at least 4 principal investigators and one of them takes the role of the leader. So the leader manages the international project, but also acts as PI in their national team. So the leader has 2 roles, one representing and managing the international consortium, but also leading activities in their national team. Can the PI and one of the PIs come from the same institutions? So again, one PI per university. So the answer here is no. What is the size of the full proposal? How many pages approximately? So for the full proposal, there will be 15 pages for the project description. And please remember that full proposals will be submitted by outline project teams invited to the full proposal stage. So after the first evaluation stage, we will invite most promising best applications to the full proposal phase. NCN in Poland so this is forbids a PI from hiring a postdoc who was their doctoral student. Will there be no objections if a postdoc is employed in the crisis project, of which one of the PIs has his supervisor, but the postdoc is employed in the team of another PI? This is a complex question. I will answer this question via email because this is a question for a national funder. So we will contact you via email. What's the structure of the full proposal and which deadlines? So the full proposal will, as I mentioned, we will ask in the proposal for a 15-page description, and the deadline is 26th of March. More information will be available as soon as the first phase is concluded, and then we will publish more information about the full proposal, and the deadline will be on the 26th of March. And you may expect the results beginning of January, the results of the first phase. The difference between the first stage and the second stage was not clear. Can you repeat what is the main difference? How is done? In practice, all criteria will be applied to the first review, but not the sub-criteria. So, as I mentioned, successful outline proposals will be invited to the full proposal stage. And we will have 3 criteria in the next round. So the relevance to the code will be checked at the first stage. So this criterion will not be employed at the second stage. So we will ask you to submit longer applications, 15-page project description. First, these applications will be assessed by external reviewers, so people who are experts in the topics of your proposals. Then you will have a chance. You will have a chance to respond to the reviews of external reviewers, and then your full proposals, your rebuttals, external reviews, comments will be made available to the review panel members, and then the review panel members will recommend the best proposals for funding. And when it comes to the composition of the review panel, we will have the same experts as at the first stage. It may happen that we will have less experts depending on the number of applications qualified to the second round. Can a PL also be a PL of another major project such as ERC on National Research Council? So there's no restriction on that. So you can be a leader in both proposals, but please keep in mind that there cannot be double funding. So the same research task, the same research activities cannot be funded by both projects. So this is important to keep that in mind. But there's no restrictions on being at the same time a PL in an ERC project or the HERA project. Is the budget for 24-month projects the same, that is 1.5 million, or is it scaled down for shorter projects? So there's no restrictions on that. So this is the available amount for 24 to 36-month projects, but please make sure that your budget is justified by the research activities that you plan in your project. What is the role of individual national funding bodies have in evaluating proposals involving PIs in the respective countries? Is the role limited to checking formal compliance with funding rules, or do they also evaluate the content of the proposal? So we have one evaluation process, so one merit-based evaluation process. Review panel members are nominated by funding organizations, and then it is them to recommend projects for funding and for the full proposal stage. National funders, they check eligibility of formal eligibility of applications. What happens if PL or PI change their institution and move to country non-eligible in the call? This is again up, so money does not follow the researcher in most cases. Again, you must check with your national funder if it's possible to move to another country and still be funded by your funder. But I think it's a rare case that money follows the researcher, but please check. Not clear to me what you mean by national agency. Can you clarify, please? So we published a list of countries that participate in the call. So each country is represented by a funding organization working in that country. So please check the call announcement published by on the CHANSE and HERA websites, and there you can see that in the table with countries, for each country you have a funding organization. So for example, for Poland, it's National Science Center. For Estonia, it's ETAC, Estonian Research Council. So each country is represented by a funder. So you must make sure that your institution is eligible for funding from that institution in your country. Are arts perspectives permitted alongside the main humanities theme in the same way that social sciences perspectives are? So I hand over to Wojciech for this one.
And the answer, there is a short answer, yes.
Okay. We have discussed it already today. So let's move to the next one. What do we mean by a non-academic partner? Is this an individual or organization? For instance, if there is a collaboration with individual artists, how does that fit? Wojciech, would you like to take this one?
I mean, that's what we were thinking about. It's, I mean, of course, you may individually collaborate, but we were interested mostly in sort of non-academic partner being having a legal status, for example, I don't know, museum or gallery and so on, because we are talking mostly about institutions being involved in this process. But depending on the what is the commitment of such a person, or I mean, if it's individual, and what you think you'd like to provide for such a person. For example, I mean, if you want to propose a budget, for example, to traveling, for project meetings and so on, it might be difficult from the institutional perspective in respective countries to deal with the individual persons and not with the institutions, because for the I don't know, for financial reasons. So you have to check also with your national partner or national agency or funder. I mean, whether, for example, you may pay for individual artists, but then the question is whether it will be a non-academic real partner, or it could be such a person could become a part of your team, and probably that what would national funder suggest you, because it's then easier from the bureaucratic point of view. So I think mostly we refer here, we are thinking about the institutional, at the institutional level, about the sort of entities and not the individual persons.
Thank you. Let's have a look at the next question. The choice of partners in the consortium is not completely clear to me. The main institution must be among the eligible countries indicated in the call. Then there are 3 to 5 further partners. Do these also have to belong to the list of eligible countries indicated in the call, or they can also be based in countries that are not present in the list of eligible countries? So this is an important question. So as I mentioned, in one project, we must have at least 4 institutions that are eligible for funding in the call. So these 4 PIs, including 1 project leader, must be based in institutions eligible for funding in the countries participating in the call. So it's important to involve 4 institutions eligible for funding in the countries participating in the call. Cooperation partners can be from any country. Where a non-academic institution is eligible for funding SPI under national guidelines, can a different individual from that organization be a non-academic partner as well? So indeed, in some countries, museums or other non-academic institution, non-research institution can be PIs, and if they're conducting research, scientific research, then they can be among those principal investigators. So this is correct. But the question is if a different individual from that organization can be a non-academic partners. So I think that if one institution is already a principal investigator, then they should not be non-academic stakeholders as well. I can see Wojciech nodding, and I think then, yeah, Wojciech, if you want to add.
Yeah, I think it might cause for some problems from the financial point of view. So, and the problem is, what are the commitments in the project? So if there is a non-academic institution but has a status and is eligible for funding, then what we think, I mean, it may do only academic work for this project, because or some form of, I don't know, research activities. And so let's keep the roles clearly separated, what is academic, what is non-academic, because I mean, of course, depending on the national requirements or national possibilities, because yeah, especially in the UK, probably the status of this non-academic partner and there is different than in the other countries, as the UK institutions are very keen on knowledge exchange. So please check it with the AHRC in this case. I mean, what would be their advice? And yeah, I mean, then prepare the consortium in a correct way. But we expect that the members of the consortium, so the partners, the PIs, they do academic work in the project and not the knowledge exchange only. So that's the question. I mean, how you may resolve this.
I was thinking of, for example, if the organization has a public outreach department who undertake knowledge exchange, but researchers in a different department. This was a follow-up question. It's, of course, it's okay if the institution of the PI also has this non-academic perspective, I think it's very beneficial for the project. But we are looking for also non-academic institutions that can be involved as associate partners. So if a Danish university is a PI already, then you need an extra non-academic stakeholder because it's obligatory from any country, actually. So it does not have to be based in the countries participating in the call. So this is up to you. But if already an institution is a PI, we would need an extra non-academic partner.
Yeah, and just coming back to the previous questions, I see Emma is among us from the AHRC, so we have this this problem resolved. The AHRC rules do not allow an IRO participating from a research perspective and as a project partner on the same project. So I think
so we do need an extra non-academic stakeholder. Does the research itself have to be on and in the listed European countries, or are projects eligible if they focus on countries outside of Europe? I think we had a similar question before, and it's okay if you are doing research on countries outside of Europe. Will it be publicly announced who the members of the review panel are? So yes, after the evaluation process is finalized, after we have the final ranking list of projects selected for funding, we publish the list of review panel members on the website. It has been the case for the HERA calls and also for the CHANSE previous call. Must the 6 main consortium partners be all academic? Each project must have a non-academic partner. Is the latter considered among the 6 partners of the consortium? So we invite research projects. So we expect that all principal investigators will be conducting research. So a non-academic partner is an extra partner under the label of associate partner. So these at least 4 must be doing research. In terms of cooperation partners, can they only be from non-participant countries? What if there is a specific very relevant research team in one of the participating countries that is already receiving EU funding for another research project whose focus is relevant to our application? If you want to just to answer it in the right way, so cooperation partners should be from from countries not participating in the call, or from research institutions who are not eligible for a funder. So these are cooperation partners. If you want to work with other teams that already received funding, you can mention it in the proposals that you will have exchange of knowledge with this team, but these are not cooperation partners. So cooperation partners should be those located in non-crisis call countries or in institutions that are not eligible for the call in your country. Are the PhD students in the project required to fulfill their thesis within the duration of the project? So not from the general perspective, but you please check your national regulations if there is a requirement on your national site, on the side of the national funder. What kinds of tangible outputs are you hoping for from a successful consortium? What the CHANSE and HERA envision as a success story? Wojciech, would you like to take this one?
So I can only say from HERA perspective and from our experience, of course, what we are hoping for is a mix of, on one hand, of the pure academic outputs. I mean, so all publications, both on the individual level of the respective teams, and also some form of joint publications, because that's the most important in the academic world. But on the other hand, we are hoping for the demonstration of a meaningful cooperation with the non-academic partners, so knowledge exchange, established relationships, which may lead to various forms of impact, because we are keen on demonstrating to the outside world that impact is possible in humanities. So we can demonstrate it only using your experience as the scholars. So Yeah, I mean, a good mix. Of course, it's a research program, so the research outputs are the most important ones, and then the knowledge exchange strategy. I mean, knowledge exchange activities, which may do something. I mean, for a better good. I mean, outside your purely university domains as well.
Let's have a look at the next one. The call should embrace all the 4 aims or could focus on just one. Wojciech?
I mean, depending on you, I mean, what you would like to demonstrate, what is your idea, so you are free to choose out of these highlighted spheres the one you are particularly interested in. So you do not have to address everything which is mentioned in the call text.
Let's have a look at the next question. Why we should choose insert partner tool between crisis and well-being call? Isn't only a call now? So we have one tool for both calls because of human resources. So for our IT colleague, it was easier to prepare a tool for both calls. So you just have to choose which call are you using. So it's only because of human resources. But so please just choose the right call when you register, because these are 2 separate calls, but just one tool for both. And the next question, if the PL has no experience in leading transnational projects, but their institution has such experience, does it count? Or it's not worth it to submit an application with the PL with no previous experience in leading transnational projects? As we mentioned, there will be a high competition in the call. This is what we expect. So it's important to choose the person right. So this exact person who will take this role should have this solid experience. Of course, we understand that the PR and PL, that they are supported by the institution, but it's also important that this exact person also has this experience. Regarding the advertised position within the project, for example, postdocs, and the fact that we have to check it with the national institution, which national institution to check it with, the one of the project leader or those of the principal investigators, because the role may be different. Yes, so it's important. Each PI, each principal investigator must follow their national rules. So if we have Poland, France, UK, and Bulgaria in one project, each of the team must check with their national funders. So Bulgaria with Bulgarian, Poland with Polish, UK with the British one, and France with French. So we will have 4 different budget, so 4 different budget columns for each national PIs. So in the projects we have 4 different budgets for each PI. There's a separate budget, but of course it serves the main goal of the entire project. So we have to check with your national funder. With the selectors recognize transferable skills. For example, if the PL has managed transnational teams in a previous career, but not yet in academia. So as this is a call for research projects, the experience in managing research projects is the most important. But of course, it helps if you already managed other types of projects, because managerial schemes are transferable skills and they can be used also in the research environment. But please remember that the research experience is the most important, most crucial for the call. What is the minimum time commitment required for the PIs and PLs? So this is again up to you and planning the resources and planning the project implementation. So please remember that depending on the type of tasks that you plan and number of tasks, the size of your consortium, is important to plan it well. Because if we have PIs that are not exactly committed to the project, it will be assessed by the experts. So it must be reflected. So the time must reflect the activities that you plan to conduct in your research. Some of the national funders have non-applicable in their funding column. What does that mean? So non-applicable refers to national caps. So for example, National Science Center in Poland, we don't have a cap on national PI for funding for national PI. So this is why we have non-applicable. But other than that, each country is allocating a portion of funding for the national teams.
And I think, no, depending on which state of the information we are referring to, maybe some of them not yet officially agreed on the national commitments. I'm not sure if we have all of them by now, but
all of them have committed.
Okay.
Yes. Next question. I think we already discussed this question. This is about expected outcomes. So Wojciech, you answered this question. So I think we may move to the next one. Or would you like to add anything? This is about the outcomes.
I mean, I still will be referring to this, maybe not knowledge, we call it knowledge exchange. The knowledge exchange tool you can find on the HERA webpage. You may see what forms of the knowledge exchange are proposed there. So you can see what fits into your research idea the best. Engagement of PhD students is not a knowledge exchange process. It is just a training within the research. So that's what they do. I mean, they are expected to do some form of research as well. So yeah, but whatever you come up with, I mean, depending if it is a scholarly activity and can be referred to as the scholarly or academic outcome or output, I mean, or is it a knowledge exchange activity and then can be demonstrated afterwards? I mean, remember only that in order to do some knowledge exchange, you probably have to have some research results to share with the community. So the research is the most important thing in this respect.
Does the exclusion of Russian entities extend to proven dissidents? Does it extend to those in exile? So by Russian entities, we mean institutions located in Russia and also in Belarus, and also related to like official institutions related to the Russian state. So this is what we mean. But if you want to involve Russian dissidents or those in exile, I mean, not entities, but researchers or people, this can be they can be involved. I don't know, Wojciech, if you want to add anything to this one.
Yes, I mean, remember the entities, I mean, there are institutions, so you cannot have a cooperation partner being institution or within institutional ties within Russian Federation or Belarus. Yeah, but if you want, for example, to have someone who is already in the West, and one of the institutions having Russian passport, I mean, there is no problem with this. I mean, it's only about officials' way of supporting in one way or another the Russian Federation institutions, and it's not about the individuals.
Mm-hmm. Do we need to consider specific policy documents? If so, which documents? Are there projects that have funded? Are there projects that have been funded before that we need to consider? So this is not so. Reference to any projects are not assessed in this call. Of course, we did have previous HERA programs, but it's not. We do not ask you to refer to these projects. So any other documents that we refer to, for example, knowledge exchange toolkit or information on open access policies of the EC, these are recommended documents. So only those that we quote in the call announcement. Other than that, we do not have any other documents that you need to stick to or consider. If we present an outline proposal and it's not admitted, will we be able to know the exact reason why the proposal was rejected so that we can benefit from the experience? Yes, we think it's very important that you receive proper feedback after the first evaluation stage. So each project will receive a consensus report from the review panel why project was not sent and invited to the full proposal stage. So each project will receive a merit-based consensus reports from the panel. are the same experts involved in the first and second stage evaluation. So we will employ the same review panel members in the second round, but depending on the topics of applications sent to the second stage, and also depending on the number, we may invite only a part of the review panel that served at the first stage. And also your full proposals will be assessed by external reviewers. So for each proposal, we'll have minimum 2-3 reviews from external referees, and they will be specialists in the exact topic of your project. So we will have reviews from external referees at the second stage and also review panel members. Do preschool count as non-academic partner? Yes, this can be a non-academic partner. Did I understand correctly that the members will only be known after the process and not before the first deadline? Yes, the review panel members, for transparency and ethics reasons, will be published on the website once the final ranking list is published. Can one of the 4 to 6 PIs work individually in the project? It's a possibility. Also check your national regulations. But of course, we invite a diversity of a research team. We invite researchers on different stages of their career in national teams. We already also addressed that question. Regarding PI's required experience of projects, if I heard you correctly, what does that mean? Is that experience of funded projects, or more broadly speaking, just experience of research in project form? So for the project leader, it's important, and it's noted in the call announcement, that the solid experience in leading collaborative research project is important and will be taken into account. For the PIs, it's also important, but the person of the leader is the most important here, because that person manages the entire consortium. But for the PI, the research track record and also other experience in participating in projects, in leading projects on the national and international level will be taken into account, because in the criteria, we also check experience of all principal investigators. Just to be sure, could I be the project leader and the colleague from my department be one of the PIs? Or would the colleague have to be a team member, but not the PI of our country team? So if it's one university, your colleague should be in your team if you're a project leader. So there can be only one principal investigator. By principal investigator, we also mean a national team. So there can be for one university, there can be only one team involved in the project, one PI per university. I think we have time for just one more question, because it's two minutes before 12. Is every consortium expected to include at least one associate partners and one cooperation partners? So involvement of at least one associate partners is mandatory. So please remember about it, that you should include one non-academic stakeholder in your application, but inclusion of a cooperation partner is not mandatory. It's optional. So this was the last question. We still had some queuing, but our time is up. But we will answer your questions in the frequently asked questions documents that we will publish and update next week, probably, because we need some time to structure the responses. And also we will include your questions and answers from this meeting in the frequently asked questions. Thank you very much for your attention, for all these important questions. I think they will resolve some of the inquiries that you had in your heads. I would like to thank all the speakers today, to Wojciech, Jessica, and Carmen, and NCN team for preparing this workshop. And thank you very much. Good luck with your applications. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us on the crisis mailbox and contact your national funders for questions on national rules. Thank you very much. Good luck and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.